You're listening to the Earth Xperience Podcast.
I'm De'Vonte Owens. I guess I could say I'm a marketer. I've been into marketing for about 10 years now, since 2016. So 10-year anniversary. Let me see what else. I'm a Jamaican American that was born and raised here in the United States. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the more we get into it, the more you'll understand.
What stories or belief systems would you start off with sharing makes up De'Vonte Owens?
I guess someone that is a realist, someone that looks at reality over idealism at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about what I think the world should be or how things should go. I kind of move on how they are, don't accept them as right or wrong, but just that's the reality of the situation. So I'm going to deal with reality. So I kind of call myself, I guess, a realist, if you want to say, a Pan-African realist.
Okay, Pan-African. What is that? Is that a faith system that you align with, or is that something else? Because I've heard it before, transparently. I've been around a group of people who identify themselves as Pan-African.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was like, I didn't know anything about it, so I never really digged into it. And then from there, I kept hearing it. I think I also heard from Dr. Umar, but I don't really know what that entails. So when you are saying Pan-Africanist, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you? Is that a belief system or just an identity?
That's a good question. It might be a mix of both to where, because like basically when it comes to Pan-Africanism, right, it is basically the love of, our people, the pride for our people, right? It's not superiority. It's just having love and pride and putting our people first. Because again, our people have for centuries, millennia, been treated the way we've been treated. So we're already always coming from, a lower position than everybody else as far as just trying to be treated as human beings, looked at as human beings and things like that. So anyone that identifies as Black, does, pro-Black things or trying to do better things for our community that's going to benefit our community to push it forward, I consider that a Pan-African. Not pro-Black. I feel like with pro-Black versus Pan-African, because like a lot of people are pro-Black, right? But when you really dig into their identity and why they are pro-Black, it's just like, okay, you ain't really into this. This is more like a fad for you. You know what I mean? Something to be a part of versus you really mean this shit. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So why do you identify as Pan-African? Because when you say you dig into them, it's like a fad for them. Like, do you have an understanding of why you actually select that as a...
Yeah, because so for me, I know from my story growing up, right, I was victim of that whole, self-hatred thing, right, to where like I was so dark, I wanted my skin to be lighter. I didn't necessarily want to be white. I just wanted my skin to be lighter because I felt like my darker skin was, bad or ugly because that's how, I've kind of been conditioned to feel, right? But after having my own evolution, because there'd be times where I would even try to, I'm gonna just say this, at one point was taking showers with lemon juice because that was told to like make your skin lighter and whatnot, right? So for me, after going through that, evolution of realizing like, wait a second, everything that I've been bred to believe about my people is actually the opposite. We're great. We're good at this. We're that, right? And now you start to go in that rabbit hole, and then you see historically why we can treat the way we do, right? Everybody wants to copy us and be us, but at the same time they hate us, right? So like kind of diving into that and more and understanding it more and more just kind of put me on that path of I need to stand up for my people. I need to be able to speak, about my people. Now, I'm not saying I want to be a martyr like, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or whatnot. I'm not saying I'm on that route. It's just more of I do embody that type of pride, that spirit of them of like Black people, right? We want to make sure that we take care of our people and feed our people the correct things and not a bunch of the BS that is fed to us in media that makes us so emotional that we can't even think logically half the time.
Yeah, let's talk through that a little bit. The things that's fed to us through media. I imagine that when you talk about your skin color, that's probably like a media thing too, like maybe everyone around us. But it's also, if I was to kind of analyze it, it seems like we in our own communities are also looking at a hierarchy of like what looks better. Like, and it seems like even if we make the petition that like dark skin is beautiful, it sometimes feels like it's said because we're making up for it feeling sad to have it. And then there are people who are lighter and they get the attention. It's almost like your preference of a flower, right? Like, it's like the flower is beautiful. So it's a weird space to be in, because it's like people are saying we have to uplift like the darker skin color. And at the same time, when we do that, it's like the lighter skin colors get like a backlash a little bit. And then it's like, now you have to uplift this color because you're only putting them down because you have to uplift this color, you know? And I feel like there's this cycle where it's just like, you know, can people just have a preference, and can it be a preference that's natural to them and not, what do you call it? Like manufactured. Like I like this is how I see it, and I could just be making stuff up. But these are some of the examples I see where like someone's like, black women aren't getting enough, dark black women aren't getting enough love. So every time I see a dark black woman, I'm gonna make sure I say something. Feels a little bit more, yeah, versus like I really truly like dark skinned women. Or better yet, I like women and I like the character, you know, of a different woman or a different man because of who they are, and their color might be light or dark. I don't know. I'm going around circles because this is one of those topics where it's just like it can go into many places, and the media does have a lot of hold on us. And I wonder like how we got sucked into that, you know? Because I also have that same notion where it's like, man, being lighter based off of data, based off of behavior, based off of people response, and within the community, not even being as white, but just being lighter in the community makes it seem like you have, you know, more preferences, you know, there's more preferences towards your lighter skin. Doesn't mean that there are people that don't like dark skin. I feel like right now, it's like, I don't know if it's fading away. 'Cause I feel like a lot of people are just like getting over some of these spells, I think, are on us.
Yeah, because basically, this is how I feel about it. Because you actually bring up something interesting that I kind of just thought about the other day. Because, you know, I don't want to say because I'm Jamaican, this is why I do it, but, you know, I smoke, right? Smoke weed, right? So therefore, whenever I think one time when I had this idea, I was like, I feel like on the internet, they engineer tribalism, right? You know what tribalism is?
Mm-hmm.
Right. To where it's like, it seeps into different parts of not only our communities but different parts of the world, like even on the white side, you know, with the politics and whatnot. They got that really bad on that side. But I know for us, and the reason why, let me break down what I mean by engineered tribalism, because as a marketer, I understand, and again, I'm on social media, right? I do ads for businesses on social media, right? And I do TV ads for them as well. But being on social media for 10 years, you know, in the way that I have, and understanding how the algorithms work, understand what actions work, and even as a marketer, when certain people take certain actions, watch a video a certain amount of time, you're going to get served more content like that, right? So therefore, social media has really become an interest-based app, right? Like on your algorithm, especially on Instagram, your algorithm is just full of things that you're interested in, right? You don't even see all the content that you follow. It's just more the stuff that you're interested in, right? Then all the apps are like that: TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, all of them. So with that being said, it's like, okay, if we have a certain idea and we identify with a certain idealism, right? The more and more we show interest to that on that app, the more and more that app is going to serve us stuff like that, right? Now, I'm not saying this on purpose, but by that design, you're going to sit here and get content served to you that continue to double down and submit your interest and your beliefs, right? So therefore, that's happening individually with millions and billions of people across the world, right? But just sticking to the United States, it's happening with millions of people. So now you have millions of people just in certain corners of the world believing a certain thing, refusing to see any other side of things, right? So when you talk about the whole black, you know, the dark skin versus light skin thing, yeah, it does feel forced because, again, we've had this wave of black women and dark skinned women and men have been treated a certain way. We need to show them love. Okay, we're doing that, right? But now, just like with any other thing in social media, like dating and whatnot, we're starting to, like you said, come out of these spells and be like, well, it's okay for me to like both things. Why am I so just on one side, right? And then some people come to that, you know, realization. It's like, you know, they start to be more open and loving to everything, right? And then that's another thing. Then you're too open and loving to everything, and then now you start to open Pandora's box. So it's like, yeah, like you said, it's we're in a time right now where we're really just figuring ourselves out, figuring society out, and figuring these things out. Because I know for me, because I know on my page, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, I talk about dating a lot, right? And I just talk about my experiences and, you know, my perspective and other men's perspective as well and whatnot, right? So even in that, we've had this thing with women to where they felt like, you know, man, ain't shit. This is now, of course, that's engineered from the government and whatnot. But still, it's just kind of like now I'm seeing more than ever women coming out of that and being like, we need to stop doing that shit. Because like that, we're the only ones doing that and stuff like that, right? Same thing for us men on our side. Like we need to, you know, treat our women better in these and you know a certain amount of categories because again, what we've been doing, what we've been taught, is not correct. So just kind of going on that whole engineered tribalism thing, like the more and more we stick to certain beliefs, the more social media is going to submit those things. So when you're not aware of that, yeah, you walk around saying some crazy things.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned this because I was thinking about this the other day. I wanted to write a piece about recreating social media. And one of the things I thought about is like, one, what you're saying here is such a good point. If I search one thing, I hate the fact that like I was searching for like a cucumber salad, carrot.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I just needed one. Every time I open it up, it's the same one. It's like, to me, that's like wild to me. It's just like you're supposed to be this intelligence, you know, you're supposed to use this intelligence for the tool. It's like if I've seen it, I don't need to see it several times because I'm going to get tired of it, right? And I imagine like there's this news offered online called Ground News. You heard of them?
Yeah, separated, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. Like if I get content that tells me, you know, blue, I want to also see the red side, right? That makes it a more balanced view because I've also seen some articles about, you know, if you only see that all this stuff is happening on one side of the political spectrum, it's easy for you to build up this rage and this dislike because you're in this box of all this content. And as you lift up the box and you're like, oh, there's other perspectives. Like now that challenges you to figure out, are you tribal type with your belief systems or are you looking for truth? Because that looks different. Truth means like on my side, if it's wrong, I can see that it's wrong. I'm not just advocating for it because of the identity thing, which this is going back to this Pan-Africanism.
Exactly. I was right there with you.
Go ahead and talk to it because I feel like you... Go ahead and talk, because I think that's one of the things about, like, it's like if you're black. Like, if you do wrong and you're called out, it's like somebody got a narrative like, oh, they only doing that because you're black. Like, but no one is like, okay, let's just look at it first. Like, is it wrong? You know, did they do something wrong? Is like, can we get through that part and agree and correct it there? Or is everything against us? And I think that mentality makes it even more difficult to attach myself some days because it's like, I'm not trying to be a victim all the time. I'm not fitting to fight everyone. I'm not always fitting to look for the enemy. I literally do want to exist in this life. And if it requires all of this hoorah, then I don't got it in me.
Right. I don't got it in me. I don't participate. That's why I'm not into politics. I'm not into a lot of things because of what you just said. It's where it's like it's too exhausting. And then a lot of times, again, like we're talking about, people are not realizing that. Like you're under a spell. You know what I mean? And I know for people like us that say stuff like spells, I know we use that as like a term to explain what we're talking about. We don't literally mean a spell, although it kind of is. But it's just like, hear what I'm saying versus, you know, trying to pick apart what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. But go back to everything you were saying with this whole, you know, engineered tribalism thing, right? So like you said, the Ground News is a good, an app as far, I don't have it, but I know how it works as far as like, yeah, it shows you the red side and the blue side. Because like you said, if you're served just nothing but blue content, it's easy to build up this hatred, this animosity, and things like that towards the other side. And again, a lot of that is on purpose, you know, divide and conquer. But at the same time, it's just like, you got three different people I feel like you're dealing with. You got people that are not aware of these things. They're not aware that you are literally being, you know, kind of like engineered to think this way based on what you're doing on social media and how they're serving you, you know, content, right? You got people that are unaware. You got people that are aware and still participate because they don't want to do anything about it, or and that's just simply just get out of the circles. They got to feel like they have to be a part of something, right? Or they have this FOMO, I'm missing out. Then you got the third people, which are people that are just aware, like me and you, and was like, you know what? I don't want nothing to do with that. So just like in the Matrix, like in that movie, I love that movie. Just like in the Matrix, you got the agents, right? The people that are in the Matrix that do anything outside what the Matrix wants, yeah, you're gonna sit here and get patronized. You're gonna get fucked with, basically. And it's the same thing. Like for people like me and you, if I just simply say, well, I don't really subscribe to politics or a lot of other stuff, you're gonna get attacked. You're like, why not? You should care about these things. This is like, look at you, bro. Like, what are you doing? You're having so much emotion and just passion for something that these people don't care about you at the end of the day, especially if you're black. It is like, why are you doing it? You know what I mean? It's just something I can't really subscribe to and understand. But yeah, like that's exactly how that happens online, and not only online, but it just bleeds into, regular reality when you're having conversations with people day to day.
Yeah. The other thing online is that it builds your ego to know that people are liking your content, that people are watching your content. But on the behind the scenes, it's like, well, what if people are into your content, but they're just not getting it fed to them because the algorithm dominates with the type of content that feeds a lot of drama, right? And so that you're working with like, oh, I'm not good enough, instead of like really putting it out there. So to kind of rebuild what we see online, because if we all keep putting our attention and our likes to like the drama, then we'll keep getting that fed, like that cucumber salad,
That's like that conversation with Black Twitter versus white Twitter. Like, because I remember you said it earlier, to where he's like, you could be on one whole side of social media and not see the other side. To where it's like, that's black Twitter and white Twitter, like that whole example. To where it's like a lot of stuff that white folks see on their tea. I'm like, I've never seen this in my life. I think one post I did do a post on TikTok and it didn't go nowhere, but it was just me just getting it out. I'm just like, bro, the internet is really the multiverse. Like, you could go to certain parts of the internet and be like, I had no clue people do this.
I'm like, it blows my mind, especially when I discover new people, because you keep getting the same content. So you think that these are the content creators that's like, known. And then I'm like, wow, I come across this video of this family or something. It's like, I've never ever seen them before, but they have like millions of subscribers. And it's like, I never got them fed to me before. Like that in itself is so odd. And I try to rework it, like try to put in other keywords to see if it will like filter or to new things. But it seems like because I do a lot of like research and studying on there. I'm looking at some dramatic content to like try to understand it, but then it's like it keeps giving me the same ones. I'm getting it from that angle. The other thing you mentioned earlier about if you are aware and you don't subscribe to it, that you get hate. That's another tricky discussion, because I don't know if you're familiar with like Candace Owens, but she has a platform, and her platform, she's on, I guess, what would be considered the right side of like the political world.
Yeah.
But it's like within the right side, it is divided. The way that I see it, it seems like she's being aware of something or speaking out that's different from like the mob. And it's like, if you go against even thinking differently, you're hated. But then at the same time, she's hated. Like another person in there, Erica Kirk, is hated. For like, it's so weird because when we use the terms of you speak out, you get hated, it's so difficult to tell what type of hate it is. If you're hated, I think there's a scripture about this, and I'm gonna mess it up. But have you ever read? Are you into the Bible? Or ever been?
I grew up Christian.
Okay,
we'll get to that though.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to get to. But there's a scripture about Jesus being hated, right? And so everyone will kind of like align themselves like, oh, they was hated by Jesus, or Jesus hated. Jesus was hated. And that kind of like makes you feel like if you're hated or you're doing something wrong, that it's because of you're doing something right. But at the same time, it's like people hate Candace Owens too. And it's like, is she doing something right in being hated, or is she doing something wrong in being hated? You'll have a group that will be able to make a case for each side. It's like when you identify someone who was truly hated because of doing something that is good or honest or true, who are those people? Like, that's kind of going back to those leaders where they will make a story out of them anyway. But from what we can see, a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King hated because of what the good they intentionally were trying to do for their people.
Exactly. Because like, let me go in order here. So with the Candace Owens thing, right? She's hated on the right side, just like Erica Kirk is hated for whatever reason on the right side. But that's another example of that tribalism, right? Although we're a part of the collective same body, but we do kind of go about the different ways in a way, just like MLK and Malcolm X, right? MLK was all about integration and, being treated fair and being treated as human beings and stuff like that, right? Malcolm X is more of like, let's just remove ourselves. Like, why are we trying to integrate with people that hate us and stuff like that, right? So it's like, we want the same thing. We want the betterment for our people, but we have two different viewpoints on it. So I feel like, and again, I'm not on the right side, but just from outside looking in on it, Candace Owens, yeah, she's, I guess, talking about things and going about things in a way that the like you said, the mob doesn't really like, right? So therefore, I guess she gets hated for it. On top of that, she's black, so I'm pretty sure that has a little bit of what to do with it. But at the end of the day, when it comes to those type of things, that's all that is. It's like, yeah, we're fighting for the same thing, but we don't like how you're doing it, so we're gonna say bad things about you to get people to hate you, to get people to agree with us, right? Which is essentially the whole, like, going back to the whole religion thing. Have you seen the movie The Book of Eli?
No.
No, so it's a movie with Denzel and Gary Oldman, and basically, it's like the Bible. It's like this book that they have. I forget if it's actually the Bible or just a book, right? And basically, it's a metaphor of how, like, one guy is saying, like you said, if you're hated, that means you're Jesus, your God, this and that. They take things from that religion, from that Bible, from whatever, the Quran, whatever, and try to spin it in a way that's their favor, right? To where it's like, yeah, I'm hated because I'm a martyr, because I'm like Jesus. No, you're hated because you're pushing and spewing hate. That's why you're hated, right? And if you don't really have that fundamental understanding and just not just go with these things, you're going to fall for anything if you don't stand for nothing, right? We've all heard of that quote. So then that's really what that is in the day. It's tribalism within a tribe. Because like I said, if me, let's say that like the whole black people thing, light skin, dark skin, where the case to be. You got people on one side that'd be like, you know what, dark skinned people are better than light skinned people. Yeah, we're all black, but we're just superior because we're darker. And then the light skinned side feels the way they feel. And it's kind of like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? But yeah.
It's so odd to me when people are really into one side. It's difficult to trust anything that they're saying because, again, we don't have that balanced view. And I don't know if you ever heard that saying about it's the same bird with the two wings, like they have the left and the right wing.
The left and the right wing, yeah.
So it's like even on the left side, it's like if we were to see ourselves as that one bird, right? In a way where like maybe everybody's getting effed over, then it's like come together. But if you see yourself in that one bird of like, okay, we are supposed to function together, so what's the disconnect? Because that same story I can say on the side of like the Candace Owens is like they have this identification of a left, but they create this left thing, which I think the whole thing is so silly. Like I'm like, we all are just looking around and like we don't see how this looks like a big show. Like I like we literally are getting played around, but like you just attach yourself to like one group and then you just get really passionate about it and y'all band together to just be upset at the other group instead of like, hey, let's really look at what the facts are,
But think about it, Danny. Like we've been like conditioned since birth to kind of do that. You can talk about religion, politics, whatever. Like a lot of this stuff has been bred into us as we were, as kids, right? So as we're growing up, we're seeing these examples of these things constantly of like you have to pick a side and things like that, right? Even just in something simple as like music and sports, you see it. You know that it's always Meg versus Clark. J. Cole versus Kendrick, whatever. It's just like you can be fans of both of them, bro. Like we don't have to always choose sides. So it's just again, that's something that just goes back all the way to birth, to where we're conditioned to as humans, as a society. I won't say as humans, as a society, to do that stuff. So therefore, when things come out, everybody's always gonna pick a side. Even in something like Marvel, like whenever Captain America: Civil War came out, it was either Team Iron Man, Team Captain America, or Twilight. Team, what was it, Jacob? And then who was the two names? I forgot. Anyway, we know what we're talking about though, right? It's like it's always two sides.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to say that. I'm like, we've been doing that. So it's natural for us to do that. It's not something we think about. It's just I gotta pick a side.
Yeah. And I think because a lot of this requires you to think and slow down, a lot of people just decide to be on one side. I even see it in myself. I'm thinking all the time. I have questions all the time, which could be exhausting to people who are just trying to like make it through. Like I keep looking like you really just hate somebody for the color of their skin. You really don't see that there's the imbalance here. Is that weird or no?
That's a mental illness, bro. Like I feel like I feel like it's an undiagnosed mental illness. If you legit hate somebody off of the color of their skin, something's wrong with you, bro. Like that don't make sense. They really don't.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad too. Like I think that's the other part. It's either sad or it's like a disconnect. Like it's not. It makes me feel like the Truman Show. Like none of this stuff is real when people tag onto something so strongly. But maybe it's like people need to be activated. I guess I haven't really seen the Matrix, but I get the idea of it. Of like maybe if they they are real, but like because of all of the conditioning, they have lost themselves or something.
I mean, yeah, because just to that point, right, with the Matrix, that's why that movie was so. I guess if you have to have a certain type of brain to just really just dissect that movie and really understand it for what it is, to where like, yeah, like you have people that are literally okay with being consumers. They're okay with being a part of the Matrix. It's funny, we were laughing, but like as we were laughing, I was thinking about it. I had dated a woman, I was with her, like that was my ex, right? And I remember I would be having these type of conversations, be one to have these type of conversations, but I'm just annoying her with all these, these things and whatnot. So I'm just like, why is it not interesting to you? Like, why is this okay? And then she even said it. She was just like, I don't know. It was like, oh, it's a meme that you've seen or whatnot, but she literally said almost exactly what this meme said. It was basically, I was like, hey, let's talk about flat Earth versus, round Earth. Just interesting conversation. And then she was like, I still got to pay bills. Why would I give a fuck about some shit like that? I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm
And
like,
that's real
what?
though. I think that's another space because the other part of this, and I think I may have been more like this in the past where it's like, I can't believe this, or why people this, people stupid. Like I had to like dial back. It's just like there's this
Right.
other side of like, yeah, because they're tired, or because maybe they were manipulated, or maybe because it is difficult, and they can't see it. And it's like if you are able to see a little bit, it's not like to one up the other person because we go back to that like versus thing. It's really to just show like is there a benefit in me seeing, or I'm just gonna be frustrated at all the people who don't see what I see because they dumb, they stupid, like what's wrong with you,
Those, those are the questions. Because, yeah, like, I know for me, I'm glad you said it because I can relate to that. I did. Like, whenever I first came into my, I call it getting red pilled. I feel like I've been red pilled twice on two different things.
Mm.
But, like, I got red pilled about the world, and then I would see how people would just go about it. Yeah, like, you have to dial back and realize, like, they are at a different part in their journey, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like for me, that's why, like you said earlier, it's kind of difficult with this type of topic having these conversations because whenever you're having a certain opinion or perspective that kind of questions reality and the other person's kind of like towing the line, right? And then they're coming at you, because you have a different opinion. It's difficult to deal with that because it's kind of like, I don't know if this person is just, they're just unaware, right? They really don't know. Or
Yeah.
two, they are aware and they don't care. Or three, I don't know. And I just get to a point where I'm just like, I just kind of have to respect what they're saying and really try to just understand what they're saying, right? And again, that comes with maturity too. But just
Yeah.
trying to understand what they're saying, and then if you've been in this path for long enough, you would start to see based on what they're saying, like, okay, where they're at, like, okay, you don't know, okay, you've been told, you just don't care,
Yeah, yeah. And then that's a different approach, right? Like if you're told and you just don't care, then it's like, okay, then we know. But if there are people who, because sometimes you'll see this in the space of religion too, where it's like you grow up in this religion, you've been conditioned to know this is the truth. You get passionate about it, and that's all that you know. And so when you are responding to someone who's like exposing something about religion, it feels like an attack on you
Yeah.
because this is your identity. You've made it your identity, and I think that's a very like delicate space to be in.
Right.
Which now takes me to
Sure.
you started with Christianity. What was it like for you growing up?
I feel like the more you get on social media and see, like, we all pretty much live like the same lives or similar lives, right? So growing up as a Black Christian in America, it's pretty simple, right? Sunday school every Sunday, you in church from 7 or 8 in the morning until noon, right? Then you go eat afterwards and whatnot. But yeah, growing up in that religion, yeah, like a lot of my ideas still until this day are kind of cemented in concrete from growing up that way, right? Even though I have deconstructed and moved away from it, but it's kind of like, dang, like that shit really still is in me, right? Because whenever I was younger, I remember it was so there, I'll never forget. I was at Sunday school, right? And they would basically always talk about how God is, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit all at the same time, right? And then I think it was another situation where they were like, yeah, God basically came down and impregnated, Mary and gave birth to Jesus, right? But Jesus is also God, just in human form, right? So I would just keep going back. I'm like, I'm kind of confused. Like, is you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, is this God in human form, or is this his son? Like, how can he be the son of himself? And all these questions, right? And then just on different things, even different stories in the Bible, it's just like, why would God do that? That was mean. You know what I mean? Or like just hearing how different things went. So I'm just like, okay, maybe these are not real stories. Maybe I gotta take them at a certain point, right? So that was my next stage. Like, okay, let's treat them as lessons, which I still kind of do when it comes to the Bible. The Bible is full of some good wisdom, right? But at the end of the day, like I had to kind of switch from looking at it at face value versus okay, what it means versus I don't know if this makes sense. You're telling me that heaven is basically something in the sky, and I'm going to be offered 20 or endless versions or something like that, right? It sounds like a man made that up. Like, what? 20 versions? Like, what? Why
Yeah.
is that needed? It's a certain right? So I think in about 2019 or 2020 is where it really popped for me, to where I just kind of like removed myself from religion altogether, right? To where it's like, yes, I'm a believer in God. I know God is real. Like I've had my own experiences not only with God, but also if you want to think about it logically, if you want to go in that direction, because I've had to like look at this different ways to debate people about this stuff. So I'm like, okay, I can have a spiritual debate, I can have a logical debate. So the logical debate is like, yeah, I'm like, okay, think about the human eye and how complex that is, right? Not only the human eye, think about just life, our body, how everything is like none of this is an accident, bro. This is not this is not an accident. This is on purpose. This is all designed, right? So even just look at it on the sliver in that instance, like yes, there is a God, creator, whatever you want to call it, whatever is comfortable with you. Like there is something above and beyond us that is divine, I believe, right? Now, when it comes to religion, I don't believe in religion, no, because religion, for the most part, and historically, has been something man-made and curated by men and used to control not only in slavery, but just to have their own way and however they want to, whatever country they're in, right? So at the end of the day, for me, whenever I finally got a red pill, that first red pill was just more of like, financial, but the second red pill was just, dang, a lot of what I've been told is not really right because I'm not only looking at religion, I'm looking at different factors and aspects of life. 9/11, so the government lies, right? A lot of our education, stuff like that. We've been conditioned to believe these things, but a lot of this stuff is either not really true or it's theory passed on as fact. We just didn't know that. You know what I mean? So you're dealing with a big society and a lot of people that are just really indoctrinated in a way, stuck in a certain way of thinking versus trying to just be more free thinking and be like, hey, maybe this isn't the way this is. Maybe this isn't reality. Maybe I need to take a second look at this, but nobody wants to really do that.
Yeah, it's so interesting going back to that right and left idea is that I think from what I've gathered, people on the right make fun of people on the left for saying things like being woke, which I find really interesting because like the people who should be woke on the right side and attached to a Bible would be those
Mm,
people because a lot of the language in the Bible is about waking up.
yeah.
So this is why a part of this kind of feels like silly, but when I think about what you're saying, it's so many different layers to a belief system. It's so many different reasons why we tag on to a god or a religion, but I think those words they start to blend in. Like when people say religion or spirituality or just like the Bible, right?
Mm,
Like to me, it's like part of these could live together, but because language dominates what somebody means when they say spiritual, it's like a religious person's like, oh, I don't have nothing to do with that. But it's like, but spiritual is a part of being in your religion, right?
exactly.
And in the religion with the if you were using the Bible for religion, it says something totally different than how we are expressing it. So it's like this conversation that's missing and has a lot of gaps and like we just hear a keyword and we're like, I don't like those people who are religious or
Mhm.
I don't like those people who are spiritual. And it's like some of this is blending together.
And a lot of religion too comes from ancient African spirituality practices, right? Ancient African spiritual practices. A lot of this stuff have been bit off and, changed over time into different things. Like I said, Christianity, Judaism, um, Catholicism, what else? Islam, like it's Buddhism, Hindu, like it's a lot of these different things. Like you said, there are similarities that come from the same ilk, but then once you get it into a certain culture, it gets chopped up into something different, right? Because that's another thing in itself. Like this is a sidebar, just to get back to it. That's another thing in itself. I forgot what it's called. I posted a video about this a long time ago. Basically, it's the study or the theory of when you learn a different language, you have a different perspective on life because languages treat language and words different than a lot of people, right? So, for an example, the U.S., right? We sit here and say if we're having an emotional breakdown, if we're in our feelings, we'll sit here and say, "I'm sad." I'm crying, I'm this, I'm that, right? That's what we say. So therefore, when we say it out loud, we identify with that. Like, you are sad. You are whatever you just said, right? But in the Japanese, when they say it, when you translate it to English, they don't say, I am sad. They say, sadness is happening. Meaning, like, this is temporary. It's going to pass. So when they say that type of stuff out loud, it doesn't stick, and they don't stick with that identity as Americans.
I think that language also is the diversity of thoughts, the diversity of experiences. Where I had a conversation with someone who studied cults not too long ago, and one of the things to help people get out of the cult mindset is to be in diverse groups, right? And I think about that in the same vein as that language, because you're now getting a different way of saying those words strung together because you were used to saying it this way. You just think that's what it is, and that's okay, because like, who has the answers to everything in life? But once you get exposed to like, oh, there's a different way to say that, and then you see fruit from that, it's like, now it makes me think about the power of the word, right? Like, why I think the Bible has power in so many different directions is because the way that you approach it or the way that you receive or consume it is showing you something about yourself. The way you start to look at those words and use it was so interesting because I was studying with someone, not even intentionally, like we was on a regular conversation and she had brought the Bible out, and it was a line that stood out to her, and her interpretation was way different than how I saw it, right? And that's another conversation, but it's just the fact, it is not who was right, who was wrong. We're reading the same words now. We're in the same place. We're using this as a source of truth, but still, like we see, religion has so many different legs. I had no idea it had so many legs until I grew up. I thought we all went to the Baptist church and we all looked at Jesus the same way, and then now it's like, no, some people don't believe this part, some people believe this part. And it's like, okay, well, let's go back to it. Let's read it. It's like, no, that's not what it means. Well, who knows?
Yes. And that is, man, you said three interesting things there, but I know I'm not going to be able to get to all of them because I'm forget. But one of them, right, is exactly that. Like, that first time when you go from thinking like, oh yeah, everybody goes to the Baptist church, everybody's a Christian, everybody's this and that, and you start to see people believe in different things. And then I don't know about you, but I know immediately for me, and I saw it with other people, but I can just speak from my own experience because I felt this heavily. Whenever I would see different people believe in different things, there was something inside of me that wanted to, like, come out and say, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you're about to go to hell. Like, what are you doing? And then me trying to put the Bible in their hand, like, no, I gotta save this person. And it's just like, I remember having that. And then I'm so far removed from that, it's just crazy because I haven't thought about it. But like, I remember doing that. I'm like, that's exactly what happens. Like, you get something different and you be like, no, you have to believe what I believe or I'm uncomfortable, you know? And that is something. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of on that because like, I haven't thought about that in years. And by you just saying that, I'm just like, I remember the time that happened. Like, I was like, wow, other people believe in different things. That's crazy.
The way you just said it too got me like fired up inside. It's still existing. I don't know if I would call it deconstructing, reconstructing, reviewing, analyzing. I don't know. Just my relationship with God and the Bible. I'm next to people who are into the Bible and they know it very well and they're very intimate, and then they have this passion to want you to think like they do about it. I imagine that there's supposed to be one source of truth, but because truth is so ambiguous sometimes and we make it up in certain lanes, it's like, okay, we all can say that orange is an orange, or that cheer is a cheer, but like we can rename it to be something else, and that goes into like how we rename and describe what happened in the Bible in the culture time, what we
Right.
stick to, and what's now. It almost exciting how many ways you can go
It is.
around here, to get to some maturity, and thinking. But I have so many things to say. Go ahead.
Okay. Because this is the thing I find interesting about all of this, right? Like not only just our conversation, but just these topics of right, how we're going from the left and right to all the different topics we went to, right? And we're really just showing a pattern, right? So like for me, whenever I'm doing research, I look at different sources, not just one thing, right? Because there's a thing called, confirmation bias or research bias and things like that, right? I'm looking at different sources. Now, the different sources are going to have different perspectives on these things, right? Especially if I'm looking at different sources from the left and the right, or however I want to do that, right? But whatever is the most common reoccurring thing out of each one, that's the closest thing to the truth, and that's the thing that they want to explore. So I'm looking at 5 different things, trying to look into one, and I see there's a common thread on all 5 of these things. They're all saying the same different things. They have different perspective and different conclusions. This one believes in this one believes it goes that way, this one believes it goes another way, right? But they're all have one thing in common, and you point out that one thing, and that's where more of the truth is. So what we're talking about, right? Just like in the example of the guy that studied cults, right? He's basically saying the way to break that is to be around more diverse groups, right? And like you said, when you get around more diverse groups and people, you start to see different perspectives, different ways to do things, and see fruit come from them, right? So with that being said, it's kind of like the Jews versus Christians, and I believe the rest of everybody else, look at that story 2 different ways, right? One of them look at it as, well, the serpent wasn't really evil. He was actually trying to tell them the truth about God. And like they're trying to like you can spin it that way, right? Really, he was the one trying to say, hey, God's lying to you. He's basically saying if you eat this fruit, this will happen. You know what I'm saying? Like he's basically telling them the truth versus other people believe like, no, he was, being evil, what the case may be, right? So like you said, you can always look at these teams 2 different ways, but I feel like that in itself just shows that a lot of these things, tribalism, religion, what we believe and how we grow up and what we do, it's all a psychological thing. It's all a psychological conditioning, a psychological event. There is no way that anybody is born as a fresh person and you're just born racist. You're born, you're born Christian, you're born gay, or you're born whatever, right? And that's not how that works. It's all about a psychological conditioning, right? Now, of course, on different aspects of life when it comes to genetics, that's a different story, right? Because that's actually science behind that. But as far as trying to explain the unknown, because for the longest time when it came to religion or gods, that's really all it's been. It's been the gap between what we know and what we can't explain. And we always just say what we can't explain, it's God, right? And it's like a lot of times you can't really do that. And it's not the smart way to go about it because it's not necessarily critical thinking. No, it's not necessarily that it's God. This is more of we don't understand that right now, right? So therefore, I know I kind of went off topic there, but getting back to the whole psychological thing, at the end of the day, what we believe, how we move, and how we react to things is all about psychology. It has nothing to do with anything else. So, like you said, multiple things can be true. So now, when you go down that rabbit hole, well, okay, multiple things can be true. So, what is really truth? It's bendable. It's whatever you want it to be. Okay, so then does good and evil actually exist? And you can start to go down all these philosophical, rabbit holes where it's like you come to the same conclusion. At least I do, to where it's just life is literally just the most basic shit you've ever heard. Life is literally what you make it. That is like the most true thing in life that can ever be told. It sounds basic and cliche, but when you break it down layer by layer and really explain what that means, it's like whatever you want to believe, that's what life is going to be. Like Jeffrey Dahmer and these serial killers, they believed what they were doing was okay, and nothing was wrong with it, and they would look at you like, yeah, like what, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you mean? And we're looking at them like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like,
What
this
do
is
you mean?
people. Like, what are you talking
You
about?
can't just do that.
Right, but then again, you go back to certain civilizations back in the day, or even some probably that we don't even know about that still exist to this day. They're cannibals. They believe in that, right? So it's just kind of like whatever is right, whatever we're raised or whatever we think is right is what majority of people believe. If this world was majority evil or we believed in doing bad things or what the case would be, we just didn't know what we're doing with bad things, somebody from another universe, another world would come and be like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? You know?
That's
So
good.
I just find it interesting, man. Like that's why I'm just like having these type of conversations. I'm like, if well, my cousin said it one time, and I stopped. I know I went on a tangent here. And then I know my cousin said it one time. She was like, I think I was like talking with people at a bar one night. We was just having a good time to use during the game. And then I think me and some people were about to exchange numbers and whatnot. And then she was like, "Well, be careful." And then, she was a little drunk, but she was like, "Well, be careful." And he was like, "Why?" He was like, "Talking with him, you might have an existential crisis." I don't know.
Oh,
Damn, man.
that's real. That's what I think about sometimes when I'm talking to people, because I'm like, this is why I do some of this, is because it's like this is a safe space for me to just go right into the deep conversation, and I had to learn how to start with small talk, but I and enjoy it really. At first, I was like, small talk, that's for dummies. But I was just like, small talk felt like it wasn't genuine, and we were like kind of fake and being like performers and like saying our lines. And it's like, to a certain degree, there are some lines that you have to say, and it's okay. It's just really, like you mentioned, what you make of it. So when I say like good morning, there's somebody in the background like, morning means this, right? And it's like, well, I'm making good morning a good thing, you know?
Right.
When you say it's what you make of it, I love that you brought up, I'm glad you brought up the Jeffrey Dahmer thing, because I want to know what you make of what good and evil is from your experiences. Like, what would you say good is, and what would you say evil is, if you are using that lens of it's what you make of it.
So that's a great question. I'm so glad that I have an answer. So whether I genuinely look at good and evil or good and bad, right? I look at it like intention. If you are doing these things for certain intentions, whether if they are good or evil, I know what we're talking about, but your intention is what matters, right? So if let's say that I'm buying a property, right? Let's say, just for example, I'm buying a property. I'm buying it, right? Why am I buying it, right? So let's say that on one end, I'm buying it because I want to have a place for my kids after I pass away, right? That's a good reason to do that, right? It's a very stand-up thing to do, right? And then on the other end, I could also say that, well, I'm buying this property because I don't like this other person that wants to buy this property, so I just want to buy it to take it from them, right? Some people would sit there and say, like, well, that's kind of mean. That's kind of messed up, right? So for me, I feel like it's really more about intention, because at the end of the day, like we was talking about earlier, it's flexible and flimsy, because let's say that something we can relate to is relationships and, things like that, right? Let's say that you're talking with someone, right? And let's say that this guy has a plan to have sex with this woman and not really commit to her. That's not his plan. He just wants to hit, right? And looking at that, you're like, okay, that's kind of messed up, bro. You should at least tell her like what you're into, what you're not, what you don't want, and what you do want, right? But for the girl, let's say that she's okay with that. She's like, oh, I don't mind. I mean, that's cool. I do the same thing. What the case be. So it's like, if you do bad or evil to someone that doesn't look at what you're doing as evil or bad, who's to say you're doing something wrong? Nobody feels like they are. You're right. But then when you look at it from another perspective or have somebody else looking in, it's like, no, y'all both are toxic, just doing bad shit to each other. But they genuinely don't think that, right? You know what I mean? So when it comes to good and evil, I just think, again, it just boils down to intent. Because, like, there's no real way to sit here and say somebody did something for a good thing or a bad thing. Like, you can look at philanthropists like, yeah, I donated whatever amount of money to this organization because, I'm a philanthropist, right? I wanted to help them out. No, you want a tax break, right? So it's kind of like, depending on what you know and why the person's doing what they're doing depends on what it can be defined as good and evil. Now, that's that part. The other end of that, who's to say anything has a definition or a label of good or evil? Let's just say that people are just doing things, right? At the end of the day, that's probably the closest truth you'll get to good and evil. Like there isn't one. It's just people doing things. Just people doing things based on where they are in life and what they believe. They're doing things. Because I promise you, I don't want to say I promise I can guarantee, but from what I've known in all of my years of life, which is about 30, I'm sitting here looking at everybody do things. They don't really realize what they're doing. They really don't. They really don't. And I know, like, for some people, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to be like, no, people know what they're doing. Yeah, people do know what they're doing, but two things can be true. Some people do not know what they're doing is very destructive. They don't know. So how can you call them evil? They're not doing it on purpose. They just, in a place in life right now, they don't realize what they're doing is destructive. So I can't necessarily attach bad or evil to this person. That's just somebody doing some shit.
That's so true. And I think that it disconnects us when we don't look at the full picture, because it's like you assume that someone knows what they're doing. We can tell when somebody don't care at all, right?
Right.
And they do know, but it's like sometimes people have these narratives about a group of people and they're upset with them about them not knowing what they're doing. And it kind of reminds me of how I was in an environment where it was a lot of women with their children, right? And they were like upset about their children doing something like playing, right? Which children are doing, like not harming. But they were like cursing at them, talking as if these children don't know anything other than just being, existing. Like we nurture children, we teach them, our way of living in this earth, but they're honest. So like they're coming in this nature of needing that development if they're going to be in this society or world. But it's like that a mature versus child mentality where we don't recognize that even people in adult bodies still have childlike minds, because somewhere along the way was stunted and they didn't really develop into a mature way of thinking. It's still like some people still stay in a high school form, some people still stay in like a middle school form, and it's like, does that mean that people who are mature, they like walk around like, because I feel like I come off childlike, right? But it's like there are people that I see, they're like so mature that they're so stern. I'm like, I don't want to be that serious. The maturity to me is that like that understanding, that full view of not, I'm mature, I'm better than them, and they're so stupid and they know, because I know it. That's the thing I was trying to get to. Because I know it, I assume that everyone else should know it. And that's not always the case. And I think that lacks maturity to even believe that just because I know this to be true, everyone would know it to be true, or because I can do it, everyone else can do it, because we all were made differently. Like the one thing I can think of is like they have these debates online about fat versus fit. Sometimes people who come on the show and they are representing the heavier side, it's like they're trying to share their perspectives and their story from their experiences, but because they don't have like the data or the point or even the way to articulate it, it's usually overlooked because it's not facts and sciences, or like this is how it's supposed to be, this is what you can do that, because there's also the psychological thing that's happening to them that's kind of making it difficult. Plus the society itself is not thinking of it. Some people probably are lazy, some people probably can do it and not, but there's some people like they want to do it so bad, it's not like they want to be in that state, but people don't believe them on this side because they have done it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their body, in their decision making, in the way that their mind was structured, supported them to be able to do it. And so they, on the other side, can't understand anyone who couldn't do it. But to see a Jeffrey Dahmer thing, that's an interesting take. I never thought about it that way, of like him not knowing that it's off, like, and thinking that it's okay because he comes from a different planet where we all do this type of stuff, and then being placed. It's like a mix of people from different planets are trying to be here on Earth, like with their mix from their planet way of living, where they could do this type of stuff, and it's not like the right thing.
Yeah, and then I think that's another one, Eileen Warnos. You know about that one? That other serial killer, her name's Eileen Warnos. No, well, she killed a lot of men, right? I think Charlize Theron played her in a movie called Monster, what the case may be, really depicting her life and everything that happened. And I bring that up because people like her, I would watch those interviews on YouTube like back in the day, and just like really watch them just talk about this stuff, and like it would get to a point where I'm just like, I would believe them. Like I would get on their side. I'm just like,
Yeah.
But like that's just how, like, not only especially if you're dealing with somebody like Ted Bundy or something like that, that's very have a lot of charisma. So like, it's easy to fall for that. But like for her, I don't want to say it was charisma. It was just she really believed what she was saying, and she really believed she was justified in killing these men for no reason, right? And again, like I feel like they did do some psychological work where they kind of saw like she had some abuse in her background from men, so maybe that is fueled into it. But I'm a firm believer in just because I understand doesn't mean I have to excuse it, right?
Yeah.
I understand why you did it, but I don't mean it's okay, right? Mm-hmm. But it's just like, anyways, I can talk about that for a long time. But anyways, the point with that is just the fact that yes, these people really believe this stuff, right? So again, depending on who you're talking to and depending on whoever you do whatever action to, they genuinely believe that something is either not an issue or it is an issue. And that's just all based on that person and where they're at in life, what they believe. Like, there's so many layers to it. Because like some people would be like, well, usually when this person does a certain action, that means that they come from this background. Not all the time. You know what I mean? It's usually with a different type of makeup. Because like, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier when we were saying that you were saying that you didn't get served certain people's content on the right side, even though they had millions and millions of followers, right? It's simply because you don't have that typical profile makeup of people that's actually going to enjoy and want to see this content, right? That's why you never seen it, because you literally, like, when it comes to marketing, you have an ad profile. Everything you do online, everything you click on, the screen time you give stuff or whatnot, that's all collected on what's called a pixel, right? And me as a marketer, I use that pixel on platforms like Meta and TikTok and Snapchat, to where I basically say, hey, I want to show this ad to people that are interested in, let's say, fitness and health, right? That ad's going to find those people that are always looking at that fitness stuff or anything with the type of makeup that's going to be interested in that stuff. It's going to show them those ads. People like me that are not into fitness and health, right, like that, I'm never going to see that shit because I'm not into it like that. And if I do, it's going to be a quick scroll. The algorithm's going to pick it up as like, well, you saw it for point whatever seconds and scrolled quickly. That usually means you're not interested. Versus this person that saw it, scrolled past, scrolled back to it, looked at it for 5 seconds, then scrolled past. We're going to show them more of that stuff in the future, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, to that point, it's just like when you have a certain makeup that can really depend on what you believe and how you see the world. Not necessarily your religion or your political beliefs, but if you come from a family of alcoholics mixed in with mostly right viewing, political beliefs, and let's say they're evangelical Christians, we know what type of person that's going to be. It's all, I feel like that's what it is. Just it's psychological conditioning. However people turn out or whatever they're suffering from, whatever they're doing, has something to do with something that happens to them psychologically.
So when I was on YouTube, I think I seen a button that's like, something you haven't seen before. They don't say that. It made me feel like I was going to see something new, but it was just something I haven't seen before in the same algorithm that they thought that I wanted, right? I imagine that we should have those type of buttons if you want to be brave and courageous to see something that is like against your algorithm in social media, to see like what you're learning. But I think it's probably like the reason why I feel like you should be able to have it without thinking about it is like we already are risking ourselves getting on social media, like the addiction. If you're not self-aware, like you can be taken in different directions. So why not have this option where it's like, challenge your belief system. Click on this button. There's nothing in your algorithm, and then from there you can select like the topic, of something that's different from what you keep consuming. When you were talking earlier, you mentioned that you believed in God and because you had experiences with God. Are there any experiences with God that stands out that makes you still believe in God? And when you say God, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm going to forget about the other really important ones, but I know for me, there was a time and place where I think I was like 10 years old, right? And I was going through a lot at school, at home, and just even with my friends in that life, right? To where, I got to a point where I wanted to, end my life and things like that, right? So I did. I got suicidal for some time around 10 years old, right? Because I had different things going on. I don't want to get into it right here, but it was a lot of different factors that just kind of made me feel trapped to where it's like, damn, like I don't got nowhere to go. People think people care about me the way they do, right? So like I would start to try to I couldn't do anything like choke myself or cut my. I was a wimp. I couldn't hurt myself. So it would be like some stuff to where I'll be like, I won't feel it or it happened in my sleep, right? So I had took like a bunch of pills at one time. I remember I made some chicken pot pies and I think I sprayed some Raid in it, like just bug spray or something like that, right? And ate it. And I've had so many like just attempts like that and then nothing happened, right? And then I remember just looking up at the sky one time, just wondering like why and stuff like that. Like why can't I just go and things like that? And I just felt like a wave of just I can't really describe it. It like either emotion or just energy or something, right? And nobody said anything. There was no voice or anything like that. But I just know that in that moment, for some reason, something told me that I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a reason, right? And I started, pretty much, moving in life that way. Like, I'm here for a reason. Let me figure that out. Let me just go about life like I have a purpose, right? And I feel like God didn't talk to me directly, maybe in a way of like actual words, but it was more of like you have a purpose. Stop doing that. You have a purpose. So I just kept hearing that in my head over and over again, and then just continuously had different experiences like that that let me know that God is here. I feel the presence and whatnot. It's indescribable. That's why I'm having a hard time describing it, but it's really this indescribable feeling of presence, right? So it's like I really don't feel like I'm alone. Not like somebody's behind me, but like just energy. I don't know. I can't describe it. I just feel I am not alone. I feel like everything I'm doing is for a reason. And so I started moving in life like that. And yeah, I would do different things. Like I remember like when I first started my business when I started going down the route of business in 2016. I first started the business in 2018, right? And I really had these moments where I felt like everything I'm doing feels protected in a way of like I'm supposed to do it this way, even if I do it right or wrong right here. I'm supposed to be here, right now, right? And I've had just different experiences like that where God is really just showing me like it feels like he's pointing like this way, okay, this way, no, this way, right? And that's for me like a lot of my experiences were just those type of things where I felt a presence and I felt like everything I'm doing was supposed to be in lockstep with this presence, and things will work out, right? So like for me, that's a big part of it for me. I mean, I have different, reasons to believe in God or whatnot, but those were the most ones that where I was like, damn, like that shit felt powerful. I can't describe that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
When you were saying I'm here for a reason, it's so interesting that at this day and this moment in this time, I've heard that saying so many different times. Like it's almost like just like a saying that we are all familiar with, but it's now hitting me differently because it's connected to like another theory that I feel comfortable attaching myself to. It was I had someone on the show who had a near death experience, and they were sharing what it felt like to be on the other side, and it was like kind of described like a heaven experience. But one of the things that I learned from that show was like we all came to Earth and we had a reason, but we don't know it because we're coming here to fulfill it. And then you're supposed to come back to the other side, and then you get to see if you actually did the experience. But it's almost like it sounds like, oh, we all here for a reason, we all here for a purpose. And people are like, I don't know what it is. But it's like, yeah, it is a reason, but you won't discover it until you actually complete it and get to the other side and see if you were able to like accomplish it blindly. Like blindly, like I imagine, and this is all theory, that like if there is this other side and we come to Earth, we're like writing down like, okay, I'm going to come down to this Earth and this is what I'm going to do. It could be real simple, like I'm going to come at 2 years old and I'm going to have a tragic accident, but it's going to help this family here, or I'm going to come here and just be a mom and a wife and care for my children, go to the shopping center and go to classes and exercise. Like I'm gonna have a simple life. It's like the game, because it's all like a game to me. The game is like, did you do it? Like your memory like out of attack. They were like, well, we're not gonna be able to really do that without it, but we'll keep giving you clues. Like you're here for a reason. You're here for a reason, and you're like supposed to uncover that as you keep tapping into what that reason is.
Now, okay, when we're talking about reason, purpose, right? Like, so like I feel like what we're talking about is purpose, right? Like I have a purpose, what I'm doing here, whatever the case may be. And then you have the other side of it, like, well, I'm here for a reason, right? Because what you just said was interesting because I have this debate a lot, not with people, just really with myself, because I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm very okay now. I used to not be okay with it. I'm very okay with now just not understanding things until I just do, or okay with just never understanding, right? But one thing that really is like I go back and forth with because they contradict. What you just said is interesting because this is why. There's this show called Loki. Are you into the Marvel MCU or anything like that?
Nah.
Okay, so Loki basically is just to simplify it. The show is about multiverse, right? Not necessarily time travel, but the multiverse, right? So basically, there's this thing called the TVA, the Time Variant Association. Their job is to make sure that the timeline that we are seeing in the movies, which is all the way from Iron Man to where we got now, they're making sure that this timeline goes the way it's supposed to go. So any branching timelines coming from this timeline, they have to delete them and prune them, because if they don't, the multiverse is going to expand in a way to where it can collapse, right? That's what they were told, right? So basically, it asks the question, and it asks a question a lot of people wonder, a lot of people say when it comes to your life is already written and whatnot. It begs the question in that show that, so do we have free will? Or are we supposed to just do this right here, right? Because y'all are basically saying that this timeline, the Avengers doing this in this movie and the Guardians of the Galaxy doing this in this movie, all that was supposed to happen. So if they did anything differently, y'all would just delete the timeline until they did it correctly. And they were like, yeah. So it's like, yeah, that's not free will, right? So it always begs that question of like, do we really have free will, or is your life already written, right? Because when we say things like, we're supposed to be doing this, or it was already written, you were supposed to do that. It was like, well, that's not free will. That means I don't have control of my life. I'm living out something that somebody told me to do, right? So then if you say other things like, well, yeah, life's what you make it, you can do whatever you want, it contradicts that. So it's kind of like, okay, what are we dealing with here? Like, is it pre-written, or do we control our destiny and whatnot, right? So that's, for me, always an interesting conversation, because it's like, is it really a situation of two things can be true, or we just don't really understand one of the both lanes, basically, right? So it's like, yeah, we're saying that our life is written, but does that actually mean what we think it means? It's like, everything that you do, everything from this conversation, every single thing was supposed to happen that way, or did my decisions create different outcomes that creates different possibilities as well? But are these possibilities that I'm walking in already kind of like my path to go down, if that makes sense? Like, you were chosen a path of like marketing, right? Now, I'm not saying you're going to be this type of marketer, that type of marketer, you're going to have these type of things, but that's your path. So whatever you do within that path, that's within whatever you want to do. But the path is already predetermined. So that's my version of like both of them being true. Your path is predetermined, but what you do amongst that path, that is all up to you.
Everything you're saying is kind of connected to my week. All these like moments that I was trying to discover, they just became easy in this conversation. And one of the things that just stood out was, if we just don't have the understanding. I've also gone back to the religious conversation, like with Christianity and the Bible. I used to think like, okay, is this a group that just know the answers and they got it? Or is there an understanding that is like that language that we were talking about earlier, that we just can't adopt because we're using the language that we only know, right? So if I'm only speaking English, but it's another way to say this in Spanish that will communicate it better, but I just don't know it, or how to hear it, or how to understand it, I have to learn the language. It makes me think about this relationship with God as like a spiritual language, where there are people who truly do believe and know God, but it's only because they started to learn the spiritual language. And that's why when they come across something or they see something, they can interpret it, versus someone who's like, my language is hate it all, it's stupid, it's logic, it's science. It's like, if you're not even willing to learn the other language, then it's not a bad or good thing. It's just that you will be disconnected from knowing if you're interpreting something wrong. Another way I've heard that before was like, maybe doesn't exist in some people's languages.
Yeah.
So it's either it is or it's not. So when you have a maybe, is all of this room for error, or it could be like, what that means.
Exactly. And then like that, just to interject for a second, that in itself, if a culture doesn't have the word maybe in their language, right, that means that culture make decisions very fast,
Like
very
that.
specifically.
Yes.
Versus an American culture, it's like, well, you know,
We'll see.
that's why a lot of people in America don't know what they want to do with their lives. So it's like it all
Yes.
connects.
Ooh, that's so good. Okay, we're gonna play this game. Do you have a pen and paper?
I do, because I was starting to write down things. I'm like, I need to jot this down. Don't forget.
No. So we're gonna play a game. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna listen to the piece of content that inspired me to reach out to you. Okay. And while we're listening to the content, I want you to write out 3 quotes from what we're listening to from you that you feel like you can talk through a little, or like that you like, or like that just stands out to you that you would want to talk through. I'm also going to do a few quotes from here, and it's going to be gamified. So I'm going to have you do a little bit of improv, where I'm just going to say one of the quotes, and then from there, whether it's in 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, you'll be choosing that a little later, you'll see. You're going to just talk through that whole 3 minutes. You have to go do the full 3 minutes, the full 2 minutes, or full 1 minute, but those are all going to be blinded. Okay. So from here, all we have to do is get your pencil and paper out. I need you to listen to yourself as you're going through your content and then identify the 3 quotes that you want to share with us, okay?
This is for education and entertainment purposes only, TikTok. So recently I saw a post that perfectly encapsulates what religion does to the human brain, right? We're not even talking about faith or anything like that. We're just talking about strictly how it affects your brain neurologically. Most religions train authority first thinking. You're taught that truth comes from above, not from questioning, testing, or reasoning. Over time, curiosity becomes doubt, and doubt becomes sin, which then creates a fear to think outside independently because you're scared of repercussion. Which perfect segues to the next one. Fear-based beliefs damages critical thinking. Hell, punishment, karma, these ideas affect the nervous system and make it obey things before it understands it. A scared mind doesn't explore, it submits. You submit to the idea that this is the only truth in the world. When if you live life long enough, you know that multiple things can be true at once. Third one, religion rewards belief without evidence. Your brain learns to accept claims based on fear or hope, not proof. That habit doesn't just stay in the church. It leaks into politics, relationships, and life decisions. Again, religion influences you with either fear or hope. So, for example, if you're ignoring red flags in a relationship, that's because you're hoping that this person isn't who they are showing you that they are. But you're seeing what you're seeing versus what you want to believe. Number 4, the brain grows through question, not obedience. The moment thinking is replaced with belief, intelligence goes on standby. It doesn't go out the door, it just goes on standby. If you just obey without really thinking about what you're doing or what you're saying, then yeah, your intelligence doesn't just go away. It just starts to be used less and less and less. So you appear unintelligent. Number 5, my favorite one. Religion externalizes responsibility. Instead of what did I do wrong, it becomes God will fix it or the devil caused it. Growth slows when accountability is outsourced. And we all know in our personal lives how important accountability is. But for some reason, when we go to religion, we don't think about it the same way. Till we say, put all the pressure on God. If there's too much pressure on you, God will do his part. You still got to do yours. Whenever something happens that doesn't go your way or whatever, you don't want to take accountability for it. But, oh, that was the devil. No, that was you. Number 6, this doesn't mean religious people are stupid. No, it means long-term belief systems shape neurological habits. And habits shape perception. And again, in everyday life, you know, as you get older, you understand habits shape a lot of things. So if you have this neurological habit to always outsource your accountability and things like that, you're going to turn to one of those people who are anxious, never your fault. And that type of person never grows until they finally eclipse. Like, I need to stop doing that. Until then, you're going to always be where you're at, blaming everybody else. Number 7, it creates moral laziness. Good and evil become rule books instead of deep ethical thinking. You stop asking why something's right, and you just follow it. Now, if everything I just said made you uncomfortable, sit down and comfort. Don't be reactive. Don't comment on the post and tell me I'm wrong or how people do it. Listen. Because that right there is exactly what we're talking about here. You're getting defensive because your belief system is being threatened. So you have to protect it by telling other people that they're wrong. And you're essentially making the point they get scared. There's this fear of I have to protect it because I believe in this, and people are saying stuff that makes sense. But I'm scared to believe it because I want to go to hell. You know, you have this whole internal battle with yourself, bro. This is great. That was it.
All right, so De'Vonte Owens.
Yes.
I need you to choose one letter from your first name and one letter from your last name.
First name, go with the D.
Okay.
Last name, go with the N.
You said the N?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to share with you a quote that I put for the letter D, and then for the letter N, the time. So the quote that you're responding to is hell, punishment, karma. These ideas affect the nervous system.
So hell, punishment, karma, these ideas affect the nervous system in ways that we don't realize. Because when it comes to neurological habits, right? Neurological habits get formed over basically doing something habitually over and over again. So if we're talking neurologically, that means with our brains, we're constantly doing a certain thought process over and over again. So if we're continuously thinking that karma, hell, and these punishments are going to be the end all be all for us thinking a certain way, it restrains us from thinking outside the box because whenever you're confined to basically fear-based thinking, you don't think outside the box. You just kind of submit and you follow the rules until the end. When it comes to the brain, it is the most powerful thing on your body. It's the most fragile thing, but it's the most powerful thing. So when it comes to the power that it does, exude when you have it, because we all have it, is basically whatever you shape your mind to do is what you're going to do. So if you're shaping your mind to be constrained and not really thinking outside the box, then you're conditioning and training your mind to constantly just think small instead of thinking bigger. You're always going to think micro instead of the macro.
Okay. So pick another letter in your name.
Let's go with the V.
Okay. And then another letter in your last name.
Let's go with the W. That's a weird one.
Okay. So for the V, here's the quote. The moment thinking is replaced with belief, intelligence is on standby.
The moment thinking is replaced with belief, intelligence goes on standby. So when you do this, a lot of times this can make you appear like you're unintelligent when really you're not. You're just not using your intelligence. So when it comes to your thinking, right? Whenever you replace belief with thinking, when you're replacing it with thinking, you're actually using your brain to make a conscious, sound decision versus what you believe. So for an example, let's say that you're dating somebody, right? Because we've all been through this. Let's say you're dating somebody, right? And basically, when it comes to ignoring all the red flags, this is kind of like what we mean by this. So you're dating someone, and let's say you see a few red flags, or maybe just one, that make you be like, that might mean this person's this way, or this person might believe in this, or the case may be, right? But at the same time, what we like to do is we like to make people fit the idea that we have, the belief that we have about them. So although I believe this person is who I want them to be, they're not really showing me that consistently. So therefore, I have no reason to really believe that. So therefore, if I continue to go down that rabbit hole with that relationship and then something bad happens or I get my feelings hurt, whatever the case may be, it's kind of like the person kind of told you already and showed you who they are. It's just you wanted to believe that they were something different. So therefore your intelligence went on standby and you weren't able to look at the red flags and be like, well, I shouldn't go down this route with this person because I see what I see versus what I want to believe. Still going. But yeah, that happens a lot with us. But again, like just there's many different ways that can happen whenever your intelligence goes on standby over a belief. Same thing with politics. You can believe in the left and the right, or whatever the case may be, right? But you as a person stop thinking and functioning critically because now you're just going with the mob versus what your mind is telling you.
All right, so you wrote quotes. Thank you again for engaging. You wrote quotes from your piece. What were the 3 quotes that you wrote?
I wrote, growth slows when accountability is outsourced. Fear-based beliefs hurts critical thinking. So kind of basically what I was just talking about, just in a different way. And then accepting things without proof. I didn't finish that one. That's crazy. But yeah, that's all I put.
Okay, interesting. I'm playing this new game. I think I like this style so far. I've done it for 2 videos, but because I like to see if we matched on one, and we actually did one. So that's okay. So you talked about relationships, and you brought it up a few times through the conversation. What is your ideal understanding of love? Have you felt it truly, or has it been illustrated, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I felt love truly. I can genuinely say that I've been in love 2 times, right? I've been in love. Like I can genuinely say that. Now, as far as my ideal of what love is, I don't believe, I guess, when it comes to soulmates, that soulmates like are a thing as far as like the one person, right? To where it's like I feel like you can have multiple soulmates. Now, I'm not saying having multiple, soulmates at once, but I'm saying that you can have that type of connection with different type of people. It's not just assigned to this one person that just happened to live in the same city, went to the same school, and in around the same environments as you, right? Like when it comes to love, I feel like whenever you are truly admire somebody for who they are, in love with who they are, not only their interests and how they think, but like just in love with who they are and how they go about themselves and how they carry themselves and things like that, right? And I feel like love is created whenever you guys are bonded, right? Y'all have bonding experiences, right? Because again, you can be infatuated with somebody, but not necessarily ever be in love with them because after you kind of try to do the tango with each other and, really learn more about each other and whatnot, you kind of see that, I may not love this person, but I got love for them, right? So I feel like love is a very deep and sacred thing at the end of the day. It's not easy. It's not everywhere. It's very rare. A lot of people like to think that it's not as rare as it is, but when we're talking true compatibility, true connection, true alignment, that's not everywhere, right? Especially how complex we are as human beings anyway, right? So it's if you're accepting who that person is and what they do and who they are, and they're accepting of you, I feel like love is just a byproduct of whatever y'all do going forward from that point.
And I think this question is interesting when I get to talk to men about love. Like, how do they know that they are in love? Is there like a moment in time where you're like, oh, I'm in love with her? Or is it like a collective experience? Like, from your true experience to say that you were in love, like, how did you know? Is it because of that bond that you were talking about? Or was it anything that stood out that you can illustrate?
Yeah. Basically, the two examples you used happened two different ways for me, right? With the first woman, it was more of like, yeah, it was a moment of like, we was like, I think it was like nighttime, look up to the stars and whatnot, and we was conversating. And I remember, I don't know what she said, I forgot what she was talking about, but I just remember just kind of looking at her and just realizing that moment, I was like, damn, I love her and stuff like that, right? Like, damn, like I can genuinely say like I'm in love with this woman and stuff like that, right? Well, the other one, the second one, I didn't have a moment like that. It was just more of like a collectively, I'm looking at everything I've done, everything that we've been through, everything that we're doing, and how I feel about her. It's more of like you're analyzing all the data and like, yeah, I love her because yeah, look what I'm doing. So, you know what I mean? Because it's like I don't just do this, right? So I was like, I love her, right? So for me, in my experiences, that's the two ways that I had my defining like I'm in love with this woman.
When we talk about the certain climate where like men and women are also back and forth with like the different ideologies that you mentioned earlier at the top of the call of like, men ain't this and women ain't that. When it comes to key topics around these conversations where it's just like relationships or marriage, what is your take on one, if you believe in marriage, and why or why not?
I mean, I believe marriage, yeah. Now, when it comes to now, for me, this is my thing though. Like at the end of the day, before we get married, are we good as a relationship, right? Because the relationship we have before we get married is pretty much going to be, if not the same or similar to when we get married. There's going to be different things. I feel like with marriage, the real only difference is one is legal by paperwork, and one is just us verbally saying that we're a thing. But I feel like at the end of the day, whatever we say and feel each other verbally, that's what the relationship is, not necessarily what a piece of paper says. But as far as I guess we want like my take on it, it can be beneficial. It can be great. It's nice to have. I would like to be married. I wouldn't mind being married. But then I do understand that yeah, marriage is more of a business deal than anything. It is more of a an alignment of people's lifestyles, not only relationships but the marriage too. Like if we're not eye to eye or have the same type of mentality, then it's a bad business deal that we're about to get into, and it can get messy, right? And then when it gets messy, yes, it does benefit women more than it does men. So that's probably why a lot of men probably look at marriage sometimes and be like, unless I really feel it, it's not worth all that. I'm not losing my stuff. And I'm not going to have an argument with her because I want to sign a prenup to protect those things, right? So, yeah.
Think about this scenario. It's two different worlds, and I would love for you to share a little bit of reason why you would choose one or the other. But you only have two options. In one world, everyone that interacts with you are fake. Behind you, they really don't like you. But they will always serve any of your needs, desires, wants. That's option one. Option
Mhm.
two is a completely honest world. When I say honest, it doesn't need to be brutal, but some people might be brutal. In this world, you don't have the key or the clues to get to the people that are for you and truly honestly like you, but the option is there. Otherwise, as you navigate the world, everyone is always engaging with you with the complete honest ideas, opinions. Like if it's not a good morning, they won't say good morning. When you think about those two worlds, which world would you choose and why?
The second one.
Really?
because I feel like we're already in the first one. Like that's so it's kind of like, okay, we got that one. But yeah, when everybody walked around just being honest, like, yeah, I would love that. I would, I'm the type of person, I'm like, you can be straight up with me. I'm not saying be rude or blunt, but it's like, if you're not feeling something or whatever, like, just say that. Like, I ain't gonna take it personally. But I get, like, society, like you said, like, we have this thing where we have to kind of play along, play these roles and whatnot, and just say the right things. But it's like when somebody passes away, it was like my condolences. I don't really hear that shit. I feel like they don't do anything. Like you don't have to say that, right? So when I appreciate if someone's in that situation, they lost someone, they would just be like, "Hey, I can't imagine anything you're going through right now. Like I know I'm not. I know nothing I'm saying or nothing I am going to say is going to help, but I'm here. Just let me know." Like that does a lot more than the societal standard of like, "Well, my condolences," or "I'm so sorry." It's just like you're just saying that that's a custom basically.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I went on a street interview to get answers for this, and most people chose the honest world. I also had like engaging conversations in the house, and it was like you get your needs, desires, and wants in the other world, even though it's fake, seems like an ideal option because when people are living in this world today, it's like they're complaining about something, right? Something is not being fed the right way or doing the right thing. It's like, okay, if you think your desires, your needs are like the ultimate thing, that means that you should be living in a perfect world, but everybody won't agree with you. And you have to be okay with knowing that. But on the other side, it's like if people are honest with you, it doesn't honestly mean that they're right either. But they could
Right.
be so honest with you that you're like, I hate this world because they hate me, and
Right.
you don't get any of your needs, desires, or wants met when you engage. It's like, do we enter this world to get needs and desires or wants, or do we enter in this world to just have a true, honest experience?
I feel like that question in itself just comes from because and just in a short little sidebar, that question could honestly be a litmus test. Honestly, it can like tell you like, okay, you're selfish versus okay, it's like, oh, okay, I see what this is. But yeah,
Like at first I thought it was clear cut, like, yeah, you're selfish. The other part is like, if you want to get a house and a car and this is what you're here for, and you feel like that, or even if you were like, I just want to be in the garden and I want to be rolling around in flowers and I don't want to have to work and I just want to enjoy being here, I don't care if y'all don't like me, but at least I'm getting something out of this life. It seems like there's some space for that to not be selfish, maybe because I'm somewhere in the
no,
middle.
it's not. It's not because that's what I'm about to get to. So we're okay. You reminded me now. So yeah, that was the thing. So yeah, if somebody's choosing that route, that would tell me something different about them anyway. It was okay. You've kind of had some type of evolution and whatnot, and you've gotten over the whole need to perform for society. I like that. So like,
Yeah.
boom, go towards that. But yeah, like you were basically saying, like, yeah, it's asking the question of like, are we here to get the things that we want and desire, or to fill our needs, or do we have another purpose? Basically, it's kind of like what you were asking, right?
Or do you just want truth or you want honesty? Because it's like, the way I'm thinking about it is, if you're here because you want truth and honesty, right? And then it happens to be that truth and honesty is something that you don't like and you don't want. Or the outcome is like, yeah, you never gonna get that job. You're gonna be poor for the rest of your life. And you're like, oh, I know now. I know it's true. It's honest. It's like, does that honesty or truth, does it do anything for you that you get to the truth and the honesty part of it, or is that something that we made up? Like we need to know the truth in order to like. It just plays around with truth a little bit. Like we need this truth in order for us to like really felt like we did life. Or have you seen the Truman Show? I'm always
Yeah,
talking
I love
about
that movie.
it. So think about the Truman Show, right?
Mhm.
He's living his best life, but everything around him is fake. He does interact with someone who's like outside of the world and whatever. But then when he walks out at the end, it's like you don't even know what it is like, or if he did he just walk into darkness and there was nothing else, or could he have just been in this fake reality where he's like, "Good morning," you know,
Mhm.
and enjoying his life. I don't know, but now he
So
wanted truth so bad, but truth was dark.
yeah, and I was gonna go a different direction with the question, man. Okay, because I was gonna go philosophical, but in in that scenario, like, yeah, if you were told, not necessarily the Truman Show, but it was something you said earlier. It was like you were told that your life was gonna go this way, you're not gonna get that job, this and that. Wouldn't that kind of dictate like how you felt about life going forward? If you just knew that, like you knew, like no matter what you did, you was gonna get the things you wanted.
That's interesting. And it also leaves room for creativity because it's like, if I do know this, how do I know that something else is not better for me? You know, or because it's almost like you have to keep investigating. Like you, like that. Let's say you get to this world of truth, and it's like, will I be a millionaire? And they be like, nope, you won't be a millionaire. And then you respond, and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna be a millionaire, right? And then you just stop there. But then you're like, okay, am I going to be a billionaire? And they're like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but you don't know because you don't inquire, and that because you don't want the honest. You know, sometimes some people stay away from like the true. They say they want honesty, but they don't. Like in relationships, again, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, tell me that you know you want to be with other women. I'll be okay with it. And it's like as soon as you hear it, your heart crushed down to the ground. You
Yeah.
really didn't want to hear that. You wanted to hear the, oh, it's only you, babe. I only see you. Like, there's nobody else that exists. Like, I knew that you was mine since the day I came to this earth.
Right.
You know? But honest, it's like, yeah, I'm into other women. I think you're cute. I love you. But like, if I could have 7, I would. That's honest. And
That
it's
is
like,
awesome.
do I feel that way too?
But okay, so that goes to a lot because like boy, I can talk about relations all day. But to specifically to what something else you said, right? Whenever you are aware of what's going on and a certain outcome is not possible, you are left with choices, right? Because at the end of the day, whatever conclusion you come to, you are left with a choice. And what you said earlier is kind of showing towards that mentality of half glass full or half empty, right? Yeah, you're not gonna be a millionaire. Some people's choice when they hear that is gonna be like, ah, well, shit. What the fuck is the point then? This is that they crash out. You know, they just don't care about their life or whatnot. But you have other people that be like, okay, if I ain't gonna be a millionaire, will I be a billionaire? Or if I ain't gonna be a millionaire, I could make 800,000. That's 200,000 off of a million. So like, I'm not at a million, but I'm living good, right? So you start to have like that's what I'm saying. Like you can have those creative, thought process like you were talking about. But I guess that's where I was at. I'm like, yeah, but that just depends on what type of person you are. And what type of person you are is also dependent on where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when you break that down too, where you come from, there's people that are left with the choices that you have, and they did something different versus what you were going to do. Like just because I grew up in an impoverished environment around the hood, or the case to be, doesn't mean that I'm going to automatically become a gangbanger, right? There's people that's been in that same position and chose to do things differently, and they were in the same environment. So that's why sometimes I'm like, can we use the environment as an excuse a lot of the time? Like, I don't think we can. It's just because there's people that came from that same environment that chose to do different things. Yeah, they're a minority, but what was different about them versus everybody else? You know what I mean? And then that's what I'm saying. It's so complex. You have to go layer by layer. So it's kind of like, I guess when I hear that, being autistic as hell, so my bad. But when I hear that, I'm just like, well, it depends on who you are. I can't answer that.
Yeah, I think the question is supposed to lean to like an autistic. I don't know. Maybe I'm not gonna say that because I don't
A
know.
neurodivergent, like
Yeah,
type of mentality. Right?
when I was in therapy not too long ago, she told me to study if I was neurodivergent or not. And I end up in this world of TikTok. I was like, maybe I am, but I have no idea. Like, I never really studied it to that degree. But I know that what I love about my experiences with children that were autistic, I used to work with children that were autistic, is that the honesty, and the brilliance that comes from it. It's like you're getting exactly what it is. Like if you choose a world of like getting my needs, desires, and wants met, but you're a person who wants everyone else's needs and desires and wants to be met, the idea that nobody likes you in that world could be something based off of you just liking yourself and that being enough. As long as the whole world is in place, it's another lane. And it also is in a lane of like who you are, where it's like in a Christian mindset, some Christian mindset, I've got to be careful with my words, who are condescending or who are like, I don't care if I tell you the truth. The truth is hard. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
like they have that mentality. It's like, I don't care if nobody like me. I'm getting the truth out. So their desire would be this world of everybody following the truth, right? And the reason why I think it's such an interesting question, because at first I didn't think it was that interesting until I got the responses I did. I'm like, oh, it could go so many different ways. Is because everyone is here advocating for something. Everyone is here like with meaning and purpose, and they're like, this is how I see the world. If we could just get this right, then it would be right. And I want us to have that exercise of illustrating, okay, if it is your desires, needs, and wants met, what does the world look like with your view? How do you see, like, for instance, those who are going against the church, how should church be? How would you design it? It's kind of like you kind of go back into yourself to realize what you said, who you are. Like, is it that you just want to sit here and complain about something and you're not willing to do the work or have the thought processes of like what goes into that? Because my theory is that maybe there was some type of structure to why we have these systems in place. There was some type of good that was supposed to come out of it, but then it just got messed up because of how people are and how they respond. Not so much of like the system doing it wrong, but like kind of comes to my thought of like way back in the day, getting an apartment, it wasn't like all these things that you had to do. But because some people were scammers or like they started to manipulate and they weren't, it's like now you got all this work that you have to do because of other people's choices, you know?
But that comes from fucking. I'm sorry, but
No, that was it. That was it. That was it.
because that all right. So like you said, from the first question of like what whenever the first one was like how would you like the world to be in your view and whatnot. It's a dangerous question to ask individuals, right? Because everybody sees how the world should be different, especially if you're like somebody that's a right-wing evangelical Christian white person. Like, no, I would not want to live in a world that you would like. No, right?
Yeah.
So just stemming from that, like, let me see. See, I'm struggling again to how to describe this. What was your last point again? Maybe that would trigger.
I forget stuff after I say it so quickly. I don't know if that means I got something going on. I remember it later on. I was talking about because now I think it's because I'm now my mind is thinking about what you said about the world of the right side person. Because it's like they could say, I want everybody to be slaves. I want y'all to be good boys
Yeah, making her great
girls
again.
and just serve us, which means that you weren't even creative to think that we all could just live in a world and live peacefully amongst one another, because your thinking skills is like it has to be my way,
Right.
and not thinking on the layer of like how can we live in a world where I can listen to you and listen to myself and we can coexist and everyone benefits.
Yeah, okay, there it is. That was my point. So basically, like, the reason why these things happen, right? Like you said with the apartment example, we have people that scam, people take advantage of the system, where the case would be, right? To get, they manipulate the system to get a benefit out of it, right? Usually financial, right? Now that is categorized as crime, right? Now, why does crime exist? You ask anybody that, you're going to get different answers. But the fundamental reason why crime exists is because of the type of society and government that we have. We have a capitalistic system, which means it rewards people that have more money. It does not reward people that have less money. So people that have less money have to sit here and think of ways to get more money. So that's why they commit crimes. That's why it exists. But if you don't have a system like that, that doesn't reward that type of shit, and it's really like kind of like socialism or a resource-based, economy and things like that, to where there's no way that somebody could just get a ridiculously amount of money ahead of everybody else, right? Because again, like that's just a part of capitalism. That's why that system works. You have to have crime. You have to have a lower class in order for that system to work, or else it doesn't, right? But my point is, with that system, you have people making certain decisions, therefore making them think certain ways, right? So when you ask that question, what would, how would you see the world and whatnot? If everybody lived in a world, which is an ideal world, doesn't exist, but if everybody lived in a world that didn't necessarily have something like capitalism, although I'm somebody that benefits off of that, having a business, but it's like being in a world without capitalism, you live in a world without crime and a lot of this distrust and mischief amongst society. The reason why society is so shifty and like that, because like I can't trust a lot of you people because everybody's up to something. Everybody's up to something here in America. Like everybody's trying to get something out of you. But if you were in a space like a tribe or the case to be where you're not worried about all that because we're all on the same side and shit like that, we have our own things going on, but we're all on the same side. And you wouldn't have to worry about people doing stuff like that. In fact, it wouldn't happen like that. And if it did, it was an outlier. So I think all that is just a result of society and the type of culture and government we live in that rewards those type of things. So now we have to have all these fail safes because our society sucks, basically.
Dang, why you keep saying more stuff? That is like making my mind go. Because it's so interesting. You brought up tribe again, and we had that tribalism conversation in the beginning. But like next to capitalism, because even when you use crime is a part of capitalism, I never even put that together. I never thought that
They're linked.
that crime had to be a part of the equation. I imagine that, and maybe I just don't clearly understand capitalism. I have like my TikTok and people not listen, me not really understanding like capitalism completely at its core. But part of what makes me, because it's like if we were designing a world, it's like there are people who can have their basic needs met, right?
Mhm.
And if they don't want to do anything more than that, they just have their basic needs met. But if somebody was like, I want to have something bigger and better, like they would enter into this realm of like, creating these businesses and things like that, still had values attached to them, right?
Right.
You can get money, but your values are what makes you more money. So like if you run a good business and you honest and like I get good work out of you, you should be growing versus
Yeah.
someone who's a slimy, deceptive. Like we should, in the society that I'm thinking of, we should be like, ew, like they should be the ones that are shamed. It's like, why would you want to hurt somebody? Shame him.
Before we move on, I just want to add too, because when it comes to capitalism too, us in America, since we're the ones that do it, the most part historically and whatnot, that's why we're the ones always pushing certain narratives. Because when you push a certain narrative and it benefits whatever corporation or foundation you have, or the case to be, you capitalize off of you pushing this narrative. So that's why there's a whole bunch of just distrust and misinformation, things like that, only in this country. Because I saw a heat map, and you can look this shit up. I saw a heat map of like basically the whole United States. I'm sorry, the whole world, not the United States, the whole world. And it showed like the amount of UFO sightings all across the world, right? And where the most of them happen, basically. And it demonstrates it by light, right? All of the United States was lit up. The rest of the countries and everything around the world, certain spots here and there, this is that. But all of America was lit up. It's propaganda. It makes money. UFO research and people it makes money. So push the narrative. Bigfoot, all that, it makes money. You make money off of capitalism. So that's why you have a lot of BS that comes out of America because we're a capitalist government. I'm sorry, that's all I want to say.
No, that's crazy because people always say like if you're thinking consciously or you're critical thinking, like there's not enough space in capitalism for that because you literally can
You
you can
push into it.
so that there's none of this exists. Like sometimes when I'm working, I'm thinking so critical that I'm like, I don't have to do this and neither do you. And it's like, but then I wouldn't have a job. I know the easier route here. And I can see how we're complicating it, you know?
Yeah.
And I can see where like there's already resources and tools designed for this to be easier, but part of this is the identity. You're attaching your identity to this thing. The other part is like, what else would we do? Because we don't have a path of what life would look like if we weren't doing the path that we already were so familiar with. Like the
Right.
path of like, oh, you don't have to work and everything is taken care of looks a little dangerous because you have been in this capitalism mindset. It's like abundance can't be shared. Abundance has to be who's the biggest and the baddest, and no matter what, how you get there doesn't matter.
Right.
And it's like going back to that Candace Owens things. It's like it seems like when she was talking, she was like the big bad boys are like in the government and they're doing all these things, and power and evil is what drives them, right? And when I think about those narratives, I keep thinking about us as the people. Like we feel like we have less power because we keep giving it to these people who so-called have power. But what would be
Yeah.
the difference between them and us? Unless it's some psychological, spiritual thing that I don't know. It's like, what if we just didn't feed the engine? And it's like, well, how do we do that? We're already a part of it. It's a part of us.
We're dependent on it.
Like when you talk about, I'm a part of capitalism too. Like I would know that like, okay, maybe if I get off social media, if I get, but it's like, but how do I connect? How do I get the stories? Like
Yeah, because that's your life. Like you've been conditioned and pretty much you're used to that, right? We call them first world problems, basically. Like, oh, we complain about our Wi-Fi working slow, a flat tire, or being late on rent, or what we gonna eat tonight. Some people they worried about where they'll get water. You know what I'm saying? Where they're trying to take a bath at and stuff like that. And it's like we got it made, so we understand that. And yes, of course, being in a society like that, you're gonna take things for granted every now and then. But it also does kind of like ground you a little bit to where you're just like, yeah, like if I just stop feeding the system, it should, if we all just collectively stop feeding the system, we should see something different. But we are a part of the system and so ingrained into it. We can't even, they do that on purpose. Like our phones. Ever since the cell phone came out, it has been something, it has been essential to life. You cannot not have a phone. You really can't. You cannot have Wi-Fi. You can't. You need that now. That's an actual bill. They used to be like a luxury. That is a bill. But yeah,
Okay, what makes a human? We think about a book. The book is a book that is not real. It's like developed through people's ideas, thoughts, stories, how they would name a chapter, even the color. But you're answering the question, what makes a human? What do you think should be in this book?
what makes a human? I know the classic cliche thing we can say is making mistakes. That's a part of the human experience, most definitely. And let me see what else. I think some like what we call in the nerd community canon events basically means like these are things that are going to happen to you in a human experience as a person living on Earth experience. You're going to go through this, right? So therefore, in that book, if we put those type of things in that book, I feel like putting in the stories, the lessons, what to look for, and things like that, that can pretty much give you like a good manual, like what it is to be a human. Therefore, creating a book of what a human is, like just a human experience. The human is just not being, scientifically what we are as, four-legged humanoids and whatnot. Not four-legged, two-legged humanoids and whatnot. It's more to it. Like we have stress, we have anxiety, we have puberty, we have our spiritual battle within ourselves, we have our relationships with our parents, our siblings, and things like that. Like all of these experiences, pretty much all across the world, minus the luxuries we have in America, but like pretty much all across the world, that's standard for everybody. You're going to go through that. Like just heartbreak, there's something you're going to go through as a human being. Learning how to bounce back from that, this is something you're going to go through as a human being. Learning how to prioritize and strategize what you need, not only personally but for your unit, as a part of being a human. So it's kind of like I feel like the book will just be filled with experiences because you can't necessarily define what a human is, but if you look at the experiences of what a human is, that can give you an idea of what a human is better than someone trying to define it.
When you mentioned spiritual experience, I know that when you have the case when you were younger, realizing that you didn't get hurt, have you ever tapped into the spiritual realm or had any spiritual experiences that you can't explain beyond just the protection that you had when you were younger?
Man, it's so many because like I got stuff like this tattooed on me because this is the flower of life. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yes.
it's sacred geometry. I got the tree of life on me, stuff like that. So the reason I bring that up, yeah, because like I've astral projected before. Like when it comes like you consider it the fourth dimension or whatnot. Because when I think about reality, that's a whole other question. But yeah, I've astral projected before. Yeah, I've had a lot of spiritual and divine experiences to where I feel like not only a presence here talking to me, but it's more of like sometimes I feel like I get channeled, right? To where it's like I'll say something or I'll get locked in and start doing some stuff. And then by the time I come out of it and just kind of get back, conscious mentally, kind of after having like an out of body experience, I'm just like, I don't know what came over me. I don't know what that was, but like that was perfect. Like that was brilliant. Like that was great and things like that, right? And also, like I remember recently, the most recent, like I guess you could say, encounter I had with the spiritual realm and whatnot. Because when I hear spiritual, that's what I'm thinking about. I don't know if I answered the question correctly, but I remember my granddad died, right? And I remember sometime after the funeral and whatnot, I was doing my meditation. I was just, I used to put my headphones on, listen to some binary beats, meditate. And I remember just meditating, and then I just remember just seeing this figure. Like my eyes were just closed. I just remember just seeing this figure, right? And my granddad was older by the time I saw him, right? I didn't see him when he was younger. But I saw this figure and whatnot, and he was just kind of just looking at me, right? And I just remember in my meditation, me trying to like walk towards it, like go towards him and whatnot. And the more I walked towards him, it was like he was also moving backwards as well. And then, yeah, it did get to a point where he stopped. And then I just kind of walking more up to him. And I couldn't really make him out, but he had like a silhouette that kind of looked like these pictures that him and my dad took. It was where like they took a picture of my dad and took a picture of him, and they saw like how similar they looked and how I just looked just like them too. And I just remember seeing certain details, but not exactly what the face was. And I remember just seeing I'm like, that's him. I'm like, I feel like that's my granddad that I'm seeing right now. It was kind of like a out of body experience while I'm at that. I'm like, damn, I think that's him. And up until that point, because my granddad's name was Keith, I would see the name Keith everywhere. So see the because he was an engineer. He worked at Bell. It was Bell Helicopters, right? So I would see that Bell Helicopter symbol a lot, but up until that point, I remember I was door dashing one time, and my door dasher's name was Keith, and I'm just like, what the hell? And then I had that meditation, and I see him, and then after that, all that stopped, and I didn't see that type of stuff anymore. So that's when I was convinced. I was like, I just encountered him on the other side or something. I don't know. That was one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had outside of the astral projection.
Yeah, both of them, I don't really know exactly like what covers it all, but both of them I'm really interested in because I don't know if people talk about it as much because it seems like it's like foreign to talk about spiritual experiences, and because it's like, you're doing that
It's scary, yeah.
or even like in Christianity, people like will hear a story like that and they will say there's a angel of light and they're manipulating and things like that. I wonder if there's anything that you would maybe not debunk or even share about like those type of experiences from the lens of, hey, do you feel like it was evil? Do you feel like it was bad? Like some people talk about it as they feel like it was fulfilling, it was real.
I mean, I feel like that just speaks to what we talked about earlier. Honestly, that video we did the exercise about, where that's one of the points. Like these beliefs create fear-based, reactions out of things. So for someone that's a very much a Christian or Christianity, where the case to be, yeah, they'll hear stuff like that and be like, yeah, they rebuke it because they don't understand it, right? But for me to answer the question, no, I don't feel it was evil at all. Usually I feel like because I've been around different presences before, like ghosts and whatnot. I've had my encounters and whatnot, but I can't explain it. But it's always something within you that just kind of lets you know, like I don't think this is a bad person. I don't think it's a bad spirit, or the case would be, right? Versus other times where you get that feeling of like, I don't like this. You're like I can't explain it. I just don't like it. So with that, of course, it's a meditation. It's something that's familiar. So of course, I didn't feel evil with that. But yeah, I feel like there are evil spirits, yes. But I feel like for most spirits, they're not as evil as I guess we want to think they are. I feel like a lot of our reactions just come from not understanding what we're dealing with here. And for me, I know me personally, I might be in the minority of people that feel this way. Anytime I feel a presence or a ghost or anything like that, anything extra, I'm more curious than scared. Unless I'm like legit given a reason to just feel like, I don't like this, like I'm more curious. I'll start talking to it. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I'm like, are you okay? Like I'll just start talking.
It's interesting because it's like the idea that you can experience something and it, like the one with your grandfather, that seems like a very like wholesome and like a beautiful moment. Some people talk about these experiences and it's like it's clearly like they didn't like it. It was a feeling that they don't want to attach themselves to. But I think when we lean into the ones that do feel really wholesome and good, like, and there's this thin line of like whether it's could be bad or good, it makes life itself so confusing because it's like it should be simple. Like we should know that this is good, but the key word that I think matters a lot is that knowing. Like that, like if someone else outside could look in and say like that's bad, then you should also be able to somehow get that same message that they got from
Right.
whatever source to say that it's bad. And because why would they have it from one person and not you experiencing it? But then there's like this other lane where it's we think that something is good for us but it's not, and we don't know.
Yeah.
But then isn't there that safety where it's like, well, you didn't know. Like if you really don't know, you don't know.
I'm sorry about that. Comes with what you said earlier. I think it's just a disconnect. Like for people that are like really connected to that, and really like not only connected, they feel that way, but they genuinely are. Because I know for me, after that experience, because that's when I used to meditate, habitually, right? I would do it like every morning, every night, or in case to be like usually when I would smoke too, I would meditate with that, right? And I remember I got more into the business world, more left brain stuff than right brain. So my habits did start to go down doing that stuff, and I don't feel as connected to that as I used to, because it's kind of like a muscle. Because if you're not actively working it out, you're not gonna feel that connection, right? So I say that to say, like, for some people that have a different perspective, it's like, okay, yeah, like you feel like it's bad or evil, but I don't feel that way, right? Okay, now that depends on the person, right? Or is this person connected? Is this person not, right? If the other person is saying that they don't feel like anything bad that is connected, then it's like, hey, it's just you reacting out of fear, right? Now let's reverse it. Let's say that this person is saying it's not scary, is not connected, and the person that is saying it's scary is connected. Then it kind of switches where it's like my credibility will go more towards that person because it's like there's something about this that don't give them a good feeling. So that means that this person's operating out of ignorance, not out of, oh, it's nothing to worry about, like they know. It's like you don't know what this is. You're not aware. We need to get out of it. You know what I mean?
It's going back to that language thing that, I thought it was so beautiful when you brought that up. This is all language.
Yes.
Speak a different language, and how well do you know that language in and out? Like, I don't know the English language that well, but there's probably other ways to communicate things that it takes me 30 minutes to say. Somebody probably could say it using the English words in like 10 minutes, but it's like I still get here and I enjoy the journey, the process, and I'm doing what I have, Thank you so much for giving me so much time today. I really enjoyed you share your time with me. I want you to share how people can connect with you. That's like your websites, anything that you're launching. But right before you say all of that, share who your audience is. I mean, you're already in marketing, so you know all the things. But like when they're searching, we think about that keyword search. Who is your audience? What type of things are they searching? What's on their mind?
I guess I'm right now kind of living two different lives, but maybe they'll mesh the bigger I get online. I don't know, but I'll have on one end my audience is people that are like me, realists, don't mind hearing the truth, understand that the truth is the truth, regardless of how we feel about it, whether if we agree with it or not. Some things are that's just reality, right? So really my audience, I guess, is more of like realists, conspiracy theorists, people that have those conversations that people are scared of, not only in the conspiracy way, but just socially, right? The non-performers, I guess, I don't know. If you want to categorize them all, I guess, yeah, the realist community. And then I guess on the other end, with my business, with marketing and whatnot, my audience is business owners and people in the entrepreneurial space.
And how do people find you?
So on Instagram, you can find me on Instagram at I am De'Vonte Owens not .com. I am De'Vonte Owens, DEVONTE Owens. That's my TikTok as well. My other TikTok is Detective Owens. That's the one that you saw the video on. And Facebook's, Instagrams, and what else? The other one? Not Twitter. My website, theprofithuntersmarketing.com. Sorry.
All right, well, we made it. Is there anything that you felt like you didn't get to say, or you want to any closing remarks before we go? Other than that, I'll give you your life back.
No, you're good. You're good. I enjoyed the conversation. You got a fan of me, right? I looked at some of the conversations beforehand, and yeah, I like the content, like what you're doing. I'm looking forward to seeing it grow, and I'll continue to be, someone here to continue cheer you on.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for such a great conversation. It was so rich. You mentioned conspiracy theory, and I'm about to get him off the phone because I'm literally about to talk to you again. So the reason why, because I want to start doing, if you want to come back and you have the time to, I want to do a piece on conspiracy theory. And I feel like since you mentioned it here, I haven't heard anyone say it, that it would be interesting to go through questions with you about the idea of conspiracy theories, because it's one of those weird ones again that I feel like.
Yeah, just I guess a quick little snippet, because I guess I'll be back. We can talk about that. A quick little snippet on that, like one end you got conspiracies that's like, yeah, like that's ridiculous. That's kind of far out there. And then you got other conspiracies where it's like, well, this is called a conspiracy, but give it about 6 months to a year, then it'll be true.
Yeah, maybe we could do a deep dive on that, because there's probably some evidence of that very case. I didn't even think about that we could kind of find to kind of put the map together. Thank you so much for being here. And that's it.
Breathe.